cases. Let's see what else we can learn about the UK situation. Joining me on Skype from there is Oroyo Eubanks. He's a resident of London. Oroyo, I hope I've said your name right. Forgive me if I haven't. But thank you for your time with us.
You're welcome. You actually did.
Thank goodness.
Good job.
Thank goodness. All right. So, I mean, tell me, as an average Londoner, how has life changed since COVID-19 became part of your reality?
It changed drastically. The social distancing measures took effect earlier this week, where more restrictions were announced by the government. Travel restrictions, you can only go outdoors once if you're going to do an exercise, or if you're going for essential items to the supermarket or to the pharmacy, or if you have to travel to work and cannot work from home. So life has changed drastically for most of us living in London, especially. Those of us who are used to nightlife, for instance, the stop put to that last weekend. So I think last Friday night was the last that pubs or cinemas were able to be opened to the public. And so that has been, I think, the most drastic change, and that was implemented 6 days ago.
Now, one of the things that we struggle to imagine is what social distancing will look like on public transport. How in God's name do you do social distancing on the Jubilee line?
That's a very good one. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to witness that in action because I've been in self-isolation for the last 13 days. But I cannot see as well how they are able to enforce social distancing on any of the underground lines that are, in full operation. They're still in full operation in London. But what I've been seeing is that they're asking people to, as best as possible, try not to take these underground lines or try not to take the bus. You work from home, they've been enforcing. But if you have to, then I think there's less people on the underground. So you're able to maybe sit in just one of those carriages by yourself, and that may be the social distancing practices that are taking place now on the underground.
Now, there was a bit of concern when recently the statistics showed that most of those who are hospitalized are actually young adults. How does that make you feel in particular? And has anybody come up with an explanation for that?
None that I've seen, no explanation that I've seen, but you are correct. A lot of those who have been hospitalized, especially since the virus surged in recent times, have been young people, which is contrary to what we've been told before, we became into a pandemic stage for the virus, that a lot of young people who are fit and healthy will not be so affected by the virus. So that came as a shocker, and I think it helped to create a lot more anxiety and panic amongst the population, and coupled with the fact that many of those young people were not being tested, so would have not been showing any sign or symptoms of the virus for days and not aware that they have the virus. And of course, that caused it to spread more rapidly amongst your social networks and your friends and families.
Tell me about the practicality of mass testing. How easy is it to get tested for COVID-19? If you, for example, wanted to do so, what process would you go through?
Right now, the process is to call the hotline that's been set up by the National Health Service, the NHS, which is 111. You go through a process of answering some questions about how you're feeling, what symptoms you're having, and if they deem you to be having severe symptoms, then you can get tested. What they're continuously saying to people is stay home. So if you experience any symptoms of the coronavirus, they're asking you not to turn up to a general practice, a doctor's office, or to the hospital, but stay home and live out those symptoms. To be honest, I think it's still very difficult for anyone to get tested. People I know would have walked into a drop-in center or to a hospital before we are at the stage and would have been able to get tested. Right now, I think they're looking at mass testing. I don't know how that's going to roll out when more people are, at home and are being told to stay home if they have any sort of symptom. I don't know how it's going to work in London because it is now at the point where most people are saying I cannot get tested, so I'm just going to stay home and live out the symptoms.
Now, your Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, announced that as part of the measures to be enforced will be some sort of stimulus package, about over £3.5 billion. What are some of the things that this money is going to be spent on, and who are the ones benefiting from it?
Good question. We're hoping that it will benefit much of the population. I think there are some concerns that it will, of course, benefit larger businesses. But I think the idea is that the stimulus package that's been announced, it will cushion the effect that the coronavirus will have on the population, especially for those who will find themselves unemployed. And so the provision has been made to help businesses to be in a position where they won't have to lay off staff. So the government has put in place a plan where if you have to be laid off, they will pay up to 80% of your salary, up to £2,500 per month. And that will be in place for the next 3 months. And that will be for persons, as I've said, who would have no work to do during this period. And so their companies have no choice but to lay them off. Right. Now, the government has provided a grant to companies in the case that they have to do that, where they will pay those employees, and then in turn, they won't have to lay those employees off. But if you've been laid off, then you can apply for that grant as an individual from the government. And so companies also have the opportunity to apply for that grant as well. So we're hoping it will benefit a wide cross-section of the population. A lot of people are anxious about this time, the uncertainty over the next couple of months, whether they'll still be in jobs or their companies will still be able to pay them. And so for a lot of those people, this is a good measure that was announced by the government this week.
Now, here in Ghana, there are constant calls for this issue of COVID-19 not to be politicized. You know, it's a life and death thing, not a politics thing for most people. Now, I know that there were similar calls in the United Kingdom, particularly when Boris Johnson came under quite a lot of criticism for not having acted on time. How is the politics being balanced against this national emergency?
You know, I think kudos. We've seen less of the politicking about it now. In the earlier days, I think rightly so, the Prime Minister was criticized for what was considered the phased approach that he continuously said the UK was taking towards coronavirus. And of course, you know, brandishing this herd immunity concept that his advisors were saying were going to be taken. And I know that a lot of the plans that he had were criticized by the Labour Party, which is now in a leadership kind of contest. So a lot of those persons contesting for leadership positions in the Labour Party now had different views about what the plans the Prime Minister was supposed to be taking for coronavirus. Suffice it to say that today, I think some of those suggestions, especially to help the self-employed and to help people who are living on the streets, were suggested by the Labour Party in the last couple of weeks and were taken on board by this government. So, which is why I said right now, a lot of the politicking is kind of dying down, and I'm seeing a lot more support from both sides of the House, because this is an issue that is affecting everyone. And so many MPs have tested positive for coronavirus, and I think they're showing solidarity because they've also been affected. And so, gladly so, not so much politics going around.
That's a relief. Now, let's talk about you, Oroyo. You've been on self-quarantine, if you will, for about a fortnight now? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But your housemate has tested positive for COVID-19, am I right?
Yes, you're correct.
What was that like? How long ago did this happen?
Very scary at first. My housemate tested positive 14 days ago for coronavirus. He just had not severe symptoms, but he just had a high fever, was at work, and had the opportunity to walk to a walk-in center close by. And then they did a few tests, and it came back the following day that he had the coronavirus. Thankfully, he's fully recovered now and is in very good health. And I think throughout the week, once we learned that he was tested positive, we jumped right away to enforce some isolation measures amongst ourselves, and to also do as best as possible to clean up and stuff around the house, so that I would not be able to pick up the virus. And we did very well. I've not been affected. I'm free from any symptoms, and I've also been put in isolation for 14 days, which ends tomorrow. And so far, I've not seen any sign or symptom of being infected by coronavirus. So we've done very well.
Trust me when I say we're all very happy for you, but it can't have been easy managing a friend, a housemate, who you literally had to quarantine. I'm guessing you kept him alone in his room?
We tried our best. We tried our best, but it's very hard, like you've said, to live in the same house where what we separate is a room, so we still have to share a bathroom and a kitchen. So I mean, just cleaning up as we go along was the order of the day. Hard as it was, but we did our best, and I can gladly say that we have been successful in the efforts to contain it in our own household.
Oroyo, it's been such a delight talking to you. Thank you so much for that, and let's do it again soon. Yeah, Oroyo Eubanks there giving us an update on what life is like in the United Kingdom with coronavirus ravaging many parts.